How's it going guys, Kris here, and welcome to another Battlefield 5 weapon guide. In today's video, we're going to be taking a good look at a Japanese submachine gun, the Type 100. We'll be going over its history, deep diving into its stats, and seeing just how the gun fits into Battlefield 5's medic class, comparing it with the other SMGs. The Type 100 was the first submachine gun to be issued to the Imperial Japanese Army, and it was the only one to be produced by Japan in any quantity, making it a pretty unique weapon. Compared to other military powers around the world, many of which were very familiar with the SMG concept, the Japanese were a bit slow at adopting the idea, especially considering submachine guns would have been ideally suited to the dense jungle environments in the Pacific, where ambush attacks and close quarter combat would have been a common thing. But it wasn't until the early 1940s when a native design was born. At the time, the Japanese weren't very experienced at designing SMGs, because quite simply, they hadn't done it before. So quite a lot of inspiration came from other weapons overseas, like the German MP18 series. And after several prototypes, the Nambu Arms manufacturing company finally created the Type 100, which was serviced in 1942 for frontline use with the Imperial Japanese Army. It was rugged, simple, and relatively cheap to produce. The gun only had one mode of fire, fully automatic, and it featured a curved 30-round box magazine to suit its purpose of being a bullet spraying machine designed to be used within close proximities. This is exactly what the Japanese needed, as up until this point in time, they mainly had to rely on rifles, pistols, and explosives to do all the work. But despite having that much needed firepower, the Type 100 was a pretty weak weapon in comparison to a lot of its foreign counterparts. It was chambered to fire the 8x22mm Nambu cartridge, which was basically a Nambu pistol round, known for being a fairly low-powered bullet that struggled with range. And despite the weapon's importance, the Type 100 was only made in fairly low numbers, with its production ended in 1945, along with the Second World War. Now in Battlefield 5, the Type 100 has a few unique features to separate it from a lot of the other medic SMGs, and when it comes to power output, the weapon's got some pretty interesting stats. Remember what I said earlier about the gun firing that fairly weak Nambu pistol round? Well, this is actually translated over into the game, because the Type 100 has some of the lowest damage figures in the whole class. It's got a maximum damage reading of 20 up to 10 meters, which then gradually declines over distance to the gun's minimum damage of just 11.2 at 100 meters and beyond. So what does this mean in terms of its ability to kill? Well, because a lot of the other SMGs typically have higher damage values across the board, basically it means that the Type 100 is going to require one more shot than normal to take down another player, with it taking up to 5 bullets to drop close range targets, though possibly up to 9 if they're far away, which is quite a lot. Of course, planting a headshot is going to make life a little bit easier for you, doubling the damage and therefore killing in one less bullet. But generally speaking, the Type 100 definitely isn't a heavy hitter, so you'll often need to land a lot of bullets to do the job. Thankfully, what the gun lacks in damage, it makes up for in speed. It fires at the fairly nippy rate of 720 RPM, which is on the quicker side of the spectrum, matching up with the likes of the M1928A1 with its standard fire rate setting. And although this doesn't exactly give the Type 100 particularly quick kill times overall, with it dropping players at a similar sort of rate to the EMB within close to mid ranges, it definitely helps to make that lower damage output less of a problem. So normally, a quick firing gun will often have the typical trade-off of being a complete nightmare to control, usually having a pretty violent recoil pattern that'll limit the gun's ease of use outside of close quarters. But in this case, the Type 100 goes against this trend, with it not only having a fairly manageable recoil pattern, but in fact, weirdly enough, some of the lowest recoil values in the class, helping to make accuracy one of the weapon's stronger factors. It's got an upwards kick of 0.4 with a vertical increase value of 0.02. Though these figures can be reduced even further with the recoil buffer spec. And compared to other guns that fire at a similar sort of rate, this makes it a much more controllable weapon, having one of the lowest values in the class. Though with it being a fast shooting gun, you're usually best firing in shorter bursts to help keep it stable nevertheless. When it comes to horizontal recoil, the Type 100 actually has a leftwards kick of 0.08 and a rightwards kick of 0.2, both noticeably different values. This means you can typically expect the gun to kick upwards and drift more so to the right when you open fire, so just take this into account if you're leading a target over range. With the weapon having a muzzle velocity of 420 meters per second, for a rapid firing SMG, I guess you can say that it's kinda high, no pun intended. This gives the gun a pretty nice bullet speed, which should often make it feel easier to use over mid-ranges, going well with those lower recoil values. So although you'll need to land more shots to kill, at least these factors should make doing so a bit less of a struggle. It's also worth pointing out that the Type 100 has its own bipod, so if you're using the gun from a defensive position, this could help to increase that precision even more, further boosting its effectiveness over medium distances. Now, just like quite a few of the other submachine guns in the Medi class, the Type 100 features a 30-round box magazine that's attached to the receiver on the left side, which is kinda similar to the MP28. 30 rounds is a decent amount of shots to have for most close to mid-ranged engagements, especially when you compare it to a few of the other guns in the class which only have 20-round capacities, such as the faster firing Suomi. Though with the Type 100 often taking more shots to put other players down, and with it shooting faster than the average SMG, you're probably going to find yourself burning through more ammo than normal as a result, reducing the number of players you'll be able to kill per magazine, which therefore leads to more reloading, potentially making you a more vulnerable target in heated situations, which is never a good thing. So with that said, how does the Type 100 fare when it comes to those reloads? Well, to be honest, it doesn't exactly do anything too different to a lot of the other SMGs, with it functioning in a pretty similar way. You can replace a partially empty magazine by performing a tactical reload in 2.4 seconds, which is the same as the MP28 and MP34. Not a slow time, but not exactly anything speedy either. A full reload when you're out of bullets is going to cost you a little bit more time, taking 3.25 seconds, which once again isn't really anything out of the ordinary, with it sort of being in the middle of the bunch. Faster than a few, but still not particularly quick. Though the fact that the Type 100 doesn't have any specializations to ramp up those reload speeds, like quite a lot of the other SMGs do, this means that you might have to be slightly more careful in CQC. So just try not to go too wild. You don't want to get caught with your pants down. So when it comes to those specializations, right at the top, we've got two choices: slings and swivels on the left and quick aim on the right. These are both going to assist the gun's reliability, allowing you to be more aggressive with it, and if you tend to ADS quite a lot, then the quick aim option might be the choice for you. Though with it being a weapon that excels closer to the action, I tend to prefer slings and swivels to cut down that deploy time and allow you to start shooting quicker after running, which of course goes well with hipfire. Speaking of hipfire, further down the tree, we've got enhanced grips and the polished action specs on the left, which are both going to improve the Type 100's hipfire accuracy. And on the right, we've got ourselves the custom and light and stock options, helping to boost that ADS accuracy when moving around. All of these specializations are also aggressive options, though because I often like to hipfire in close quarters, and because I tend to pick slings and swivels to start with, this makes the left side more appealing for me. Though if you've picked the quick aim spec to start with, and you pretty much always tend to aim down sights whenever you can, then going down the right side might be the best way to go, because these options are all going to complement each other quite well. As for the last section of the spec tree, on the left side we've got the recoil buffer, reducing that upwards kick by lowering both the vertical recoil and vertical increase values, and on the right side you'll be able to find the barrel bedding spec, increasing aim down sight accuracy when standing still by lowering the gun's spread. Because the Type 100 already has a pretty manageable recoil pattern, you might want to choose the barrel bedding specialization, which could make the weapon seem easier to use when stationary. Though because the gun is primarily an aggressive weapon, you're going to be moving around quite a lot when opening fire, rendering that barrel bedding option less useful against close range targets. This is why I tend to opt for the recoil buffer, to lower that already low vertical kick even more, thus further improving its stability, which should allow you to fire in longer durations whilst being able to keep it under control, which is generally better for aggressive play. So, in conclusion, the Type 100 is yet another rapid-firing SMG that tends to be more comfortable within those close to mid-ranges, generally performing at its best here. But it does so in a way that's slightly different to a lot of the others, because it doesn't inflict quite as much damage, so you'll therefore need to land more shots on target to bring your opponents down. This might sound like a pretty big detriment to the gun's usability, because there's quite a few other submachine guns out there that pack more punch, fire at similar or faster rates, and basically have quicker kill times, which is definitely a good thing when it comes to using aggressive tactics closer to the front lines, the kind of thing that SMGs tend to do best. But with the Type 100 having better recoil values and generally being a much more accurate weapon, This compensates for that lower damage output, and allows the gun to hit more shots on target easier than normal, despite firing at a nippy rate. This will make it feel like an easier weapon to use in a lot of cases, especially if you're taking on players outside of close quarters. And with it having a reasonably high muzzle velocity too, these factors should also slightly boost the gun's effectiveness over early mid-ranges, despite it often taking an extra bullet to kill. Those 30 round mags are usually large enough to let you do what you need to do, as you'll be more than capable of taking down a few players one after the other before needing to reload. But because it'll often take more shots to put players down, those magazines might not seem quite as sustainable, often depleting a little bit earlier than you'd probably like. This means that you might have to be a bit wary about rushing into a dangerous situation head first, because if you get surrounded, you're probably not going to have enough bullets to take everyone on. But with that said, the Type 100 is still designed to cater to offensive playstyles, and providing you've got a good enough aim and can stay on target, it can definitely be a little monster in the right hands. So thanks for watching guys. If you enjoyed the video, let me know it by hitting that like button, and subscribe and turn notifications on to be the first to see new content coming up in the future. If you want to support the channel and get your very own member badge and a few other things, you can do so by clicking that join button at any time. But anyway, thanks for watching folks, have a great day, and I'll be seeing you in the next episode.